Miami's skyline glitters at dusk. Far from the familiar streets of New Jersey, Tony Soprano stands on a hotel balcony, bathed in neon glow and salt air. In this alternate timeline, he's fled to Miami under the guise of business. But in truth, he's lying low, a king without a kingdom. Little does Tony know, Miami harbors predators of its own, and one in particular has noticed the newcomer. A dim fluorescent light hums overhead. Plastic sheets hang like ghostly curtains in a remote warehouse by the Miami docks. Tony Soprano jerks awake, wrists and ankles bound tight to a table with industrial-strength shrink wrap. His chest heaves against the unyielding plastic. Across from him stands Dexter Morgan, face splashed with shadows, eyes cold and intent. On the wall, photographs of bruised and bloodied corpses stare back. Images of men Tony had ordered dead over the years, now pinned up like a macabre art exhibit. Tony's heart pounds. You don't have to do this, Tony growls, masking fear with anger. Sweat beads on his forehead. Dexter steps forward slowly, a scalpel glinting in his gloved hand. It ends tonight, Tony, Dexter says in a low, almost regretful murmur. Tony strains at his bonds, rage and panic contorting his face. The plastic crackles but holds. Bang! A sudden crash from somewhere outside the room. Dexter's eyes flicker toward the noise. Tony seizes the distraction, muscles surging. In that frozen second, predator becomes prey, and the scene cuts to black. Hours earlier, Part 1, Tony's Miami exile. The story truly begins a few weeks prior. Tony Soprano arrives in Miami like a restless lion forced out of his pride. Back in New Jersey, an old murder has resurfaced. The FBI dug up the bones of Tony's first victim from decades ago. With heat on his Jersey crew and whispers of indictment swirling, Tony did what any survivor would. He disappeared for a while. Officially, he's expanding business interests in Florida. Unofficially, he's avoiding a one-way trip to prison. Tony checks into the Fontainebleau Hotel, a swanky Miami Beach spot, under an alias. By his side is trusted Capo regime Paulie Walnuts Gualtieri, silver-winged hair and all, grumbling about the humidity. They meet up with an old friend, Bean Gaeta, who runs a Miami club now. Over Cuban cigars and pastelito pastries, Tony tries to relax, but his eyes constantly scan the exits. He's a stranger in a strange land. Tropical shirts instead of leather jackets, salsa music in place of Sinatra. Every knock on the door makes his hand twitch near the gun in his waistband. Carmela Soprano, Tony's wife, calls him twice a day. "When are you coming home, Tony?" she pleads over the phone. Carmela's voice is tinged with worry. She's heard bits of news from back home, the FBI snooping around. Tony assures her, "Soon, Carm, just tying up some deals down here." In truth, Tony doesn't know when it'll be safe to return. Each day in Miami feels like walking on a tightrope strung above a pit of gators. One wrong move and everything could go wrong. One steamy afternoon, Silvio Dante, Tony's consigliere back in Jersey, calls with an update. Over a crackling line, Silvio explains that a snitch gave the feds bad info. They're now blaming that old murder on someone already dead. The immediate FBI pressure is easing. Tony breathes a sigh of relief. Maybe this exile will be shorter than expected. But Silvio warns him, "Stay down there a little longer, just until I give the all clear." Better safe than sorry, T. Tony agrees. He may be impatient, but he didn't survive this long by being reckless. That night, Tony finds himself unable to sleep. He slips out, telling Paulie he just needs some fresh air. In truth, Tony's demons are creeping in. Anxiety, the what-ifs, the familiar tightening in his chest that prefaces an oncoming panic attack. Miami's night air is warm and thick as he strolls along a quiet stretch of South Beach, trying to clear his head. He ends up in a late-night diner, the kind with grease-slick counters and a neon open sign buzzing in the window. Tony slides into a booth alone and orders coffee. As he stirs in sugar, his mind wanders to his family. Meadow and AJ, his kids, up north, Carmela holding things together at home. Here he is, a powerful mob boss, exiled and alone at a Formica table, wishing he could just be at his own kitchen counter with his bowl of ice cream. He scowls and shakes off the thought. Focus, he tells himself. You're not beat yet. Part 2, A Chance Encounter. Across town, Dexter Morgan stands under fluorescent lights in the Miami Metro Police Department's forensics lab, examining a blood spatter report. By day, Dexter is a mild-mannered blood spatter analyst for the police, a dependable lab geek with a shy smile. By night, he's something far darker, a serial killer who preys on other killers. Dexter lives by a strict code taught by his late father, Harry. Only kill those who deserve it, those who've escaped justice. And tonight, fate has placed a particularly intriguing someone in Dexter's path. Earlier that day, Dexter overheard a conversation between two homicide detectives, one of them his foul-mouthed sister, Deborah Morgan. They were discussing an unidentified male body found in an alley near South Beach. Some lowlife with mob connections, shot twice in the chest execution style. Deb mentioned something about Jersey mobsters in town, possibly stirring trouble. The word mob piqued Dexter's interest. Miami's underworld is usually drug cartels and gangbangers. Organized crime from up north is a rarity. Dexter pulled the case file. The victim was a New York-connected loan shark rumored to be meeting a Tony Soprano. Dexter's eyes widened slightly at the name. Tony Soprano, head of the daimyo crime family of North Jersey. He'd read about that crew in FBI bulletins that came across his lab desk. Multiple murders linked, but nothing ever stuck legally. A mob boss with a penchant for violence, on the run in Dexter City. A slow grin curled at the edge of Dexter's mouth. This could be interesting. That night, Dexter decides to do a little reconnaissance. He dons his usual casual attire, khakis, a button-down shirt, the attire of an innocuous nobody. But in his pocket is a syringe of M99 tranquilizer and a hunting knife, just in case. The dark passenger inside him, the name Dexter gives his murderous inner voice, is wide awake, urging him to learn more about this new predator in town. Around 2 a.m., Tony finishes his coffee at the diner and steps back onto the street. The city is quieter here, a few blocks from the tourist traps. He lights a cigar and exhales, watching the tendrils of smoke twist upward into the humid night. That's when he senses it, the feeling of eyes on his back. Tony's survival instincts, honed by years of watching for FBI tails and would-be assassins, kick in. He tenses and casually rests a hand inside his windbreaker, fingers brushing the cool steel of his handgun. In the shadows across the street, Dexter lingers, watching Tony with a curiosity almost childlike. This man exudes a dangerous aura Dexter recognizes. Predator, like himself. Tony's movements, the way he scanned the street, even the controlled way he smoked. It reminds Dexter of a caged animal, alert and ready to strike. He's been hunted before, Dexter notes internally. He can feel me. Tony abruptly turns and calls out gruffly, "Who's there?" His Jersey accent bounces off the quiet storefronts. Dexter has to think fast. Stepping out under a street lamp, he plasters on a sheepish, disarming smile. "Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you," Dexter says, raising his hands as if harmless. "I thought I recognized you from the hotel bar earlier. You dropped this." Dexter holds up a black object, Tony's wallet. Tony's eyes narrow. He pats his pockets. Empty. In his rattled state, he hadn't even noticed it missing. Dexter had skillfully pickpocketed it moments ago, as a pretense to start a conversation. Heart still pounding, Tony crosses the street, keeping a healthy distance. "Yeah, thanks," he mutters, taking the wallet cautiously. He eyes this odd stranger up and down. Dexter's demeanor is mild, polite, not the typical street thug or fed. Tony's read plenty of people. This guy doesn't scream cop, but something is off. Who walks around at 2 a.m. returning wallets? Dexter can almost see the calculations behind Tony's dark eyes, so he offers a believable half-truth. "I was working late at the police station. I'm a forensics guy, and stopped by the diner for a bite. I saw you drop your wallet when you paid." At the mention of police station, Tony stiffens. Dexter quickly adds, "I'm just a lab tech, not a cop. Name's Dexter." He extends a hand. Tony doesn't shake it. Instead, he grunts, "Tony?" He doesn't volunteer a last name, and Dexter doesn't press. Tony's instincts still scream that this is weird, yet there's no immediate threat. In fact, Tony's wallet, with his fake Florida ID and a stack of cash, is back in his hand. Most creeps would have run off with it. For a moment, they stand under the yellow halo of the street lamp. Tony Soprano, a bear of a man radiating menace, and Dexter Morgan, a slender, unassuming figure with a soft smile. An unlikely duo on a quiet Miami night. Before the awkward silence grows, a shabby car skids around the corner, headlights off. Tony reacts first. Trouble. The car's window slides down and the barrel of a gun emerges. Muzzle flash. Shots crack the silence. Tony lunges behind a parked delivery van, drawing his own gun in a flash. Dexter dives instinctively behind a mailbox. Bullets ping off metal and shatter glass. It's an ambush, likely a hit team sent from New York. Finally tracking Tony down, adrenaline surges in Tony. He pops up from cover and returns fire with two thunderous blasts. One hitman slumps over the wheel. The car swerves and smashes into a lamppost. The second goon spills out of the passenger side, bleeding but alive, raising his pistol at Tony. Tony has him dead to rights and pulls the trigger. Click. His gun jams. Time seems to slow as the mobster takes aim at a suddenly defenseless Tony. But before he can fire, Dexter appears behind him like a ghost. With shocking speed, Dexter slips an arm around the goon's throat, jabbing his syringe into the man's neck. The hitman's eyes roll back. He collapses unconscious in Dexter's arms without a sound. Dexter gently lowers him to the pavement. Tony stands there stunned at how swiftly the tide turned. Gun still in hand, he eyes Dexter warily. "What the hell was that?" Tony pants. Dexter responds calmly as he ties the thug's hands with a zip tie pulled from his pocket. M99, elephant tranquilizer. He'll be out for hours. It's an honest answer, though Dexter omits that he usually uses it to sedate his victims. Tony is breathing hard, mind racing. This stranger, a lab tech supposedly, just saved his life with professional coolness. Tony knows he owes Dexter now, and Tony Soprano never lets a debt go unpaid. They hear sirens in the distance. The gunshots have drawn Miami PD's attention. Tony's not eager to answer police questions, even under an alias. Dexter seems to read his mind. "Follow me. I know a way out," Dexter urges. Perhaps foolishly, Tony takes a leap of faith. He follows Dexter through a maze of back alleys, just as flashing blue lights flood the street behind them. Down a shadowy alley, two figures sprint side by side under a flickering street lamp. The night is alive with danger as Tony and Dexter flee the scene. One a mafia boss, the other a secret predator. In these narrow back streets, an uneasy alliance is born in blood and adrenaline. They emerge 2 blocks away, undetected. Tony bends over, catching his breath, and finally looks Dexter in the eye. "Why'd you do it? You don't even know me," Tony asks, equal parts grateful and suspicious. Dexter shrugs, offering a half smile. "You look like you needed help. And let's just say I have no love for guys who try to kill people in the street." This much is true. If there's one thing that rouses what little emotion Dexter has, it's predators hurting the innocent. Or in this case, hurting Dexter's interesting new friend. Tony nods slowly. Miami just got a lot more complicated, but for now, he extends a hand to Dexter, this time sincerely. "Thank you. You saved my life." They shake, and a strange spark of camaraderie passes between these two men, bound by secrecy and violence. Part 3, Brotherhood in Blood. By the next morning, news of the nighttime shootout is on the local TV. The attacker's car was found, one gunman dead on scene, and one mysteriously tied up and tranquilized for the cops. The story is sensational. Mob violence in Miami with hints of vigilante justice. At Miami Metro Homicide, Dexter Morgan is both frustrated and intrigued. "What kind of friggin' Batman swoops in and gift wraps a mobster for us?" she exclaims, slapping the case file on her desk. The arrested goon isn't talking yet, but one name surfaces from his cell phone records. Tony, with a New Jersey area code. Deb's eyes narrow. Could Tony Soprano really be in her city? And if so, who on earth out there is protecting him or fighting his battles? She's got a gut feeling, and Deb Morgan's gut is rarely wrong. Meanwhile, Tony and Dexter have breakfast at a quiet Cuban diner off the tourist strip. Over café con leche and guava pancakes, Tony is far more relaxed than one would expect after a near-death experience. In fact, he's in high spirits, cracking a rare smile as Dexter listens intently to his tale of that one time Paulie Walnuts got spooked by a psychic and nearly whacked an old lady. Dexter chuckles at the right moments. He's playing the role of a curious, slightly awkward friend. Inside, however, Dexter is studying Tony carefully. The dark passenger in him whispers that Tony fits the code, a murderer who has evaded justice. And yet, Dexter feels a flicker of something almost like affection for this larger-than-life mob boss. Tony's crude humor and brazen confidence are oddly endearing, like a favorite eccentric uncle. For Tony, Dexter is an enigma. The guy handles himself like a pro under pressure, yet claims to be just a lab tech. As they stroll out of the diner into the rising sun, Tony probes, "So you work with the cops, but you're not a cop. You some kind of vigilante?" Dexter shrugs, deflecting with a joke. "Vigilantes wear masks, don't they?" "I just happen to have useful hobbies." Tony smirks. He respects a man who can handle himself and keep secrets. After all, Tony lives that life daily. Useful hobbies? "Well, I'm grateful for them," Tony says. "Maybe I can return the favor someday." Over the next several days, an unlikely friendship forms. Tony, no longer looking over his shoulder alone, finds himself enjoying Miami a bit more with Dexter around. They hang out at Beansy's Club after hours, where Tony introduces Dexter to real Italian cannoli flown in from New York. Paulie, however, is not amused. Paulie grows suspicious of Dexter's intentions. One night, he pulls Tony aside, voice low and eyes glaring. "T, I don't like this guy. He works for the cops, for Christ's sake. You trust him?" Tony waves off Paulie's concern outwardly. "He saved my life. That's all I know." "Relax." But later, Tony does caution Dexter. "My guys back home, they hear you're police, even just a lab tech. It's bad optics for me." Dexter understands and suggests keeping their association low-key. In truth, Paulie's distrust starts to irk Tony. The tension between the two Jersey comrades had already been simmering. Tony recalls how he even doubted Paulie's loyalty recently. So when Silvio calls again with an update, the coast is nearly clear back home. Tony surprisingly tells Paulie to head back to Newark first. "I need you to make sure things are solid for my return," Tony insists. Paulie bristles, sensing a slight, but obeys. He leaves Miami reluctantly, giving Dexter one last hard stare and a two-fingered, "I'm watching you" gesture. Dexter just offers a polite wave. With Paulie gone and Beansy busy with his club, Tony's circle in Miami shrinks to essentially Dexter. They spend afternoons fishing off a small rented boat, Tony's idea of laying low, and evenings playing cards in Tony's hotel suite. Tony finds himself opening up over bourbon one night, reminiscing about his childhood in Newark, even vaguely alluding to the pressures of the family business. Dexter listens with genuine interest. He's getting a front-row seat to the psyche of a mafia boss. For a man who usually fakes social interactions, Dexter finds these chats with Tony oddly genuine. He almost forgets that in the back of his mind, he's methodically cataloging Tony's sins, preparing for the possibility that he might have to put his friend on a kill table eventually. One evening, as a Miami thunderstorm rages outside, Tony confesses something personal. "I've been seeing a psychiatrist," he admits quietly, gazing into his glass. He tells Dexter, in vague terms, about his panic attacks, how therapy's helped him cope. It's something he's never told any of his mob associates, yet with Dexter he feels a strange safety. Dexter in turn surprises himself by sharing a bit about his own life. "I lost my mother in a violent way when I was a kid. My foster father helped me channel my impulses." Tony interprets this as Dexter having had a rough childhood and maybe some anger issues. Tony nods knowingly. He too was shaped by a tough father in a violent world. This stormy night conversation is a turning point. There's a budding bromance, a sense of mutual respect. They're two men who live in violence, trying to appear normal to the world. Tony even jokes, "Doc Melfi would have a field day with us, huh?" Dexter just smiles, not realizing Doc Melfi is Tony's therapist. If things were different, they might have remained lifelong friends. But in this world, darkness always finds a way to seep in. Part 4. Suspicion and Deception. As Tony and Dexter grow closer, others are growing suspicious. Dexter Morgan has been digging into the recent events. She's connected Tony Soprano's alias at the Fontainebleau Hotel to the diner shootout incident. She also notices Dexter has been unusually absent, or working late, on nights around the Tony-related chaos. Deb's no fool. She knows her brother's quirks. Dexter normally shuns social life, yet she spotted him once at a distance exiting Beansy's club with Tony. What the hell is Dexter doing hanging out with a mob boss? Deb thinks. Deb voices her concerns to her boss, Lieutenant Maria LaGuerta, and the FBI liaison on the mob case. They caution her that Tony Soprano is dangerous. If he's in Miami, he's likely laying low, but cornered animals bite hard. Deb can't shake the feeling that something's off with Dexter's involvement. Late one night, Deborah tails Dexter. She follows his car from their apartment. They coincidentally share a complex as in the show, and sure enough, he leads her to Tony's hotel. Deb watches from her own car as Dexter and Tony step into a nearby bar for a nightcap. Deb's jaw clenches. Why, Dex, she thinks, worry mixing with anger. Inside the bar, Tony senses Dexter is a bit on edge. Dexter's keenly aware that Deb might be onto him. He caught a glimpse of what looked like her car in the rearview mirror earlier. Dexter steers the conversation to Tony's future. Sounds like you'll head back up north soon? He inquires. Tony nods. Couple more days, I think. It's about time. Dexter feels an unexpected pang at that. He realizes if Tony leaves, his chance to deliver justice to Tony might slip away. But another part of him, the part that's grown fond of Tony, is almost sad to see him go. That night, Dexter lies awake debating himself. In dark voiceover, in his mind, we hear, Tony Soprano, family man, affable companion, and ruthless killer. Can I let him walk away? He recalls the photos of Tony's past victims he saw in police files. A beleaguered informant beaten to death, a strip club dancer found strangled. Dexter doesn't know Tony wasn't directly responsible for that one, but it's in the file. Rivals and old friends snuffed out. Tony has a long trail of blood behind him. By Dexter's code, Tony must pay. Yet Dexter imagines Tony's easy smile during their fishing trip, the genuine fear in Tony's voice when he talked about possibly losing his family to his lifestyle. It's complicated, a shade of gray Dexter isn't used to. While Dexter grapples with this, Tony's gut is also telling him something's wrong. Little comments Dexter made, the extraordinary skills he displayed. Tony starts wondering if Dexter has been completely honest. One afternoon, Tony tests Dexter. He asks him to help move some merchandise, a package Tony claims is smuggled cigars that need hiding from customs. He deliberately leads Dexter to an abandoned garage and pulls back a tarp to reveal not cigars but an assault rifle and blood-stained tarp, simulating a crime scene. Tony watches Dexter's reaction intently. Most people would be shocked or ask questions. Dexter, however, barely bats an eye. Instead, Dexter casually remarks, "Looks like someone had a busy night." He even notes how the blood spatter on the tarp indicates a high-velocity impact. It's a slip, his forensic expertise showing. Tony's eyes flash, a telltale sign confirming his suspicions. "You know, Dex, you seem to know a hell of a lot about how to clean up a mess," Tony says, stepping a little closer, hand resting near his holster. "Almost like you've done it before?" The tension in the dusty garage is palpable. Dexter realizes he's been caught in a lie of omission. He plays it off with a chuckle. "I've been to a lot of crime scenes. Occupational hazard." But Tony isn't fully convinced. Quick recap of part 1. Last time, Tony Soprano escaped New Jersey heat by hiding out in Miami, an unfamiliar jungle of neon lights and tropical storms. He checked into a fancy hotel under an alias, hoping the FBI would lose his trail. Little did he know, Miami had its own predator, Dexter Morgan, a forensic analyst with a lethal secret. Their worlds collided one night when a hit squad ambushed Tony on a quiet street. Dexter stepped in, saving Tony's life with his lightning-fast takedown skills. An unlikely bond formed. They shared a few laughs, a few close calls, and just enough trust to keep each other alive. but neither man truly let his guard down. Tony suspected Dexter's expertise wasn't just from lab work. Dexter, in turn, wrestled with his code, knowing Tony had a long history of violence. Then came the shocking moment. Tony strapped to a table in a makeshift kill room, Dexter poised to end him for good, until a sudden crash interrupted the final blow. Predator became prey, and the night cut to black. Now in part 2, we discover what happens when two dangerous worlds fully collide. That evening, in Tony's hotel suite, Carmela Soprano arrives unexpectedly. She could no longer stand waiting in New Jersey, fretting over her husband's safety. Tony is overjoyed to see her. They embrace tightly. Carmela immediately takes stock of the situation. She's introduced to Dexter, this mild-mannered stranger Tony's mentioned on the phone. Carmela, sharp as ever, senses an odd dynamic. Over dinner in the suite, she watches the two men chat. Tony is animated, more open than he usually is with outsiders. Dexter is polite, perhaps a bit too polite, asking Carmela about life in New Jersey with genuine interest. Carmela notices Dexter doesn't drink much wine, and his eyes, they seem to drift into observation mode, as if he's studying them. There's something off about this man, she thinks. Later, she whispers to Tony in their bedroom, "I don't like that you've gotten so chummy with some strange guy down here. Do you really know him?" Tony brushes off her concerns outwardly, but internally he shares some of them now. That night, with Carmela asleep, Tony wakes from a nightmare, a flash of that garage test and the ghostly image of Big Pussy, his old friend turned informant, looming behind Dexter. Tony quietly slips out of bed and makes a decision. He's going to check on Dexter Morgan. Tony has pulled background checks on countless associates. He knows a guy in the Miami PD who owes the Sopranos a favor. Using a burner phone, Tony calls in a favor to get some intel on Dexter. The report he gets back in the early morning fax is bizarre. Dexter Morgan, blood spatter analyst, foster son of the late Harry Morgan, a highly respected police detective. No criminal record, a normal citizen on paper. Too clean, perhaps, but one detail grabs Tony's attention. Dexter's biological mother was a victim of a gruesome murder, cut into pieces with a chainsaw in a shipping container. Tony's blood runs cold reading that. It's horrific, even by his standards. Poor kid, he mutters. Tony can't shake a gnawing feeling now. Dexter's darkness, his proficiency with killing tools, the ease in violence, could it tie back to that trauma? Tony has seen trauma breed monsters before. After all, Tony's own upbringing with a mobster father made him the man he is. He starts to suspect that Dexter might be more than just a vigilante helper. Maybe Dexter has his own agenda. The final straw comes when Tony accidentally discovers Dexter's secret trophy. It happens the next day. Dexter swings by Tony's hotel to pick him up for lunch. As Tony opens the door, Dexter's phone buzzes and he steps into the hallway to take the call. It's Deborah warning him, "I know you're with Tony. Don't do anything stupid, Dex." Dexter, irritated, tells Deb he'll explain everything later and hangs up. In those brief seconds, Tony notices Dexter left his bag by the couch, and something small and glassy has slipped partway out of a side zipper. Curious and distrustful now, Tony reaches over and pulls it out. It's a microscope slide with a reddish smear. Tony frowns, holding it up to the light. It looks like blood, and it's labeled with a piece of tape, a name written in Dexter's neat handwriting, one Tony doesn't recognize. Next to Dexter's bag, a wooden box lies visible, a jar, with slots perfectly shaped to hold slides. Most of them are filled. It hits Tony like a freight train. Dexter keeps trophies of blood. When Dexter re-enters, he freezes. Tony stands there, slide in hand. The air feels electrified. "What is this, Dexter?" Tony asks quietly, a dangerous edge in his voice. Dexter's mind races for an explanation, but his usual smooth lies fail him. Tony's face hardens, looking every bit the mob boss who sniffed out a traitor. "I'll tell you what I think. This here. This is a trophy. You some kind of sicko collecting blood, huh? All this time I thought I was safe. You were watching my back. But you've been hunting." Dexter's facade drops, his eyes cool to an icy stare. And you've been lying to me too, Tony, he replies evenly. Background checks? Snooping through my things? Tony hisses back. Damn right. I knew something was off. You play the harmless schlub, but you're as twisted as the guys you save people from. He makes air quotes with one hand, the other still gripping the slide. Tony's betrayal stings Dexter more than he expected. Not that he'd admit it. The friendship is shattered, replaced by two predators circling. Did you ever truly trust me? Dexter asks softly. Tony barks a humorless laugh. Trust? In our line of work? Don't be naive. Tony pockets the blood slide, an insurance policy. I think you better stay away from me and my family from now on, Tony warns, stepping forward. For a moment, it seems he might just walk out and leave it at that. But Tony makes a mistake. He turns his back to Dexter to grab his jacket and Carmela's keys, intending to get her and catch the next flight out of Miami. Dexter's eyes flick to the half-open door, then to Tony's exposed back. The dark passenger roars within him. This is the moment, now or never. With predatory swiftness, Dexter lunges. Before Tony can react, Dexter's arm hooks around Tony's neck, and a needle jams into Tony's shoulder. You never did get that thank you drink with me, Tony, Dexter whispers almost sadly as the tranquilizer surges. Tony swings an elbow back with all his might, connecting with Dexter's ribcage, a solid hit that sends Dexter staggering. Tony, woozy but furious, fights the chemical fog. He manages to draw his gun from his waistband, but his vision doubles. Dexter, wind knocked out, scrambles back just as Tony fires. The shot goes wide, thudding into the wall. Tony's knees buckle. Carm, he slurs, calling for his wife in the next room. But the drug is too strong. Tony crashes face first to the carpet, unconscious. Dexter stands, rubbing his bruised ribs, heart pounding. That was too close. He swiftly gathers the spilled slides, including the one Tony pocketed, and replaces them in his bag. From the bedroom, Carmela's alarmed voice calls out, Tony? Everything okay? Dexter curses under his breath. He forgot Carmela was here. Thinking fast, he hoists Tony's limp body over his shoulder in a fireman's carry, surprisingly strong for his size. Carmela steps into the living area just in time to see the suite's door closing. Tony and Dexter are gone, and a spilled cup of coffee on the floor is the only sign of a struggle. Carmela's blood runs cold. She saw Dexter's face for an instant as he dragged Tony away. It was expressionless, dead-eyed, not the face of a friend. Realizing Tony is in danger, Carmela does something she's rarely done in her life. She calls the police. Through panicked tears, she explains to the dispatcher, My husband's been kidnapped. The man's name is Dexter Morgan. He took him. Part 5, The Final Showdown. Dexter's SUV races through Miami's back streets. Thunder rumbles in the distance. Twilight is falling. Tony lies unconscious in the back, bound in duct tape for good measure. Dexter's mind is strangely calm. This had to happen, he tells himself. Tony chose his path, and I have mine. Yet under that rationale is an ache of betrayal. Tony was perhaps the closest thing to a genuine friend Dexter ever had. And now Dexter will treat him like every other monster he's put down. He drives to an abandoned boatyard warehouse by the Miami River, a place he scouted earlier as a potential kill site. Inside, the space is already meticulously prepared. Dexter's plastic kill room awaits its final guest. He lays Tony on a table and secures him with heavy plastic wrap and tape, layer upon layer across limbs and torso. Rain begins to patter on the warehouse's tin roof as the storm finally breaks. Under the harsh light of a single work lamp, Dexter arranges the scene. He tapes photos of Tony's suspected victims to a pillar. Big Pussy Bon Pensiero, shot on a boat. Ralph Cifaretto, beaten to death. Others whose disappearances have Tony's fingerprints. It's a gallery of ghosts meant to confront Tony when he awakens. And awaken he does. A low groan escapes Tony's lips as the tranquilizer wears off. Tony's eyes flutter open. His brain struggles to catch up. He's bound. He can't move. The last thing he remembers is Dexter's attack. Reality floods back and Tony's face contorts first in rage, then a glimmer of fear. Dexter, you piece of... Let me out of this, he roars, straining mightily. But the restraints hold. Even Tony's formidable strength is no match for Dexter's plastic cocoon. Dexter steps into Tony's view, now clad in his dark green rubber apron, the uniform he dons for every kill. Under the buzzing lamp, Dexter's face is emotionless, but his eyes gleam with a mix of anger and sorrow. "Hello, Tony," he says quietly. "I'm disappointed it came to this." Tony spits out a curse, muscles flexing as he tries to break free. His voice echoes in the empty warehouse. "I trusted you. I would have taken care of you like family, and you do me like this?" There's raw hurt in Tony's tone beneath the anger. In his own way, he had grown to care about Dexter too. Dexter's jaw tightens. "Family," he repeats, almost scoffing. "Do you even know what that means, Tony? The people in these photos, some were your family once." He holds up a photo of Big Pussy Bumpensiero, one of Tony's dearest friends turned FBI informant, whom Tony personally shot on a boat years ago. Tony's eyes flicker with pain at the sight. Killing Pussy still haunts him. Dexter sees it. "It hurt, didn't it?" Dexter presses. "But it didn't stop you. It never stops you." Tony's voice drops, gravelly and intense. "That fat traitor was like a brother to me. You think I wanted to do it? You think I don't see his face at night?" He snarls, "Don't you dare talk to me about family. I did what I had to do, always. For my family. My real family." Dexter paces slowly, keeping a safe distance from Tony's swinging range, in case he somehow wriggles an arm free. "Your real family," Dexter echoes. "Carmela, Meadow, AJ. I've watched you, Tony. I've seen you laugh with them, worry about them. I believe you love them. Yet every violent thing you do puts them in the crosshairs. All the blood, all the business. It will drown them someday. If a bullet doesn't find you, it'll find your son. Or prison will take you from them, or someone like me." Tony's face falls for a moment, the brutal truth landing. A flash of regret crosses his eyes, but Tony quickly hardens again. "If you think killing me is justice, you're no better than I am," Tony says, a bitter laugh cracking in his throat. "You're just a serial killer with a daddy complex." Dexter flinches as if slapped. Tony, ever shrewd, picks up on it and pushes. "Oh yeah, I did my homework on you, kid. Dear old Harry knew you were a monster and tried to point you at other monsters. But what would he say now? How many good people have gotten hurt around you? I met your sister Deborah, sweetheart of a girl. What happens to her when the truth comes out? Because it will eventually." Dexter's controlled mass slips. He rushes forward, pressing the scalpel to Tony's cheek in a flash of anger. "Shut up," he hisses. Tony doesn't flinch. He actually smiles, seeing he drew blood, figuratively. In that smile, Dexter sees a reflection of himself, a man who enjoys power and control. It rattles him. Dexter takes a breath, regaining composure. Following his ritual, he steadies the scalpel and slices Tony's cheek, drawing a thin line of blood. Tony grunts but doesn't scream. A crimson trickle pools. Dexter collects a single droplet in a prepared glass slide. Tony watches, panting from pain but still defiant. "That make you feel better? You got my blood? We blood brothers now?" He taunts through clenched teeth. Sliding the blood sample into a slide case, Dexter monotones. "This is for me, a reminder of why you're here." He then picks up a long carving knife from a metal tray. The final act is near. Thunder booms as the storm intensifies, the sound rolling through the rafters. Before Dexter can make his move, a voice echoes from the darkness of the warehouse. "Miami PD! Drop the weapon!" In the doorway stands Deborah Morgan, pistol raised with a two-handed grip. Behind her, partially concealed, is Carmela Soprano, eyes wide with fear and determination. They have tracked Dexter down, Deb by pinging Dexter's phone and following the trail of his recent strange behavior. Carmela by refusing to sit idle and guiding Deb with Tony's likely hideouts. Carmela remembered Tony mentioning an old boatyard meeting. Dexter's heart plummets. Deborah and Carmela? Carmela rushes forward despite Deb's warning to stay back. "Tony!" she cries. She stops a few yards away, horrified at the sight of her husband bound and bloodied. Tony, upon seeing Carmela, feels a flood of shame and relief all at once. "Carm, I'm okay," he manages, though clearly he's not. Deb's hands tremble as she keeps her gun trained on her own brother. Jesus Christ, Dex! What have you done? Her voice cracks. In all her worst suspicions, she never envisioned this. Tony Soprano alive, about to be butchered by her sibling. Carmela moves to Tony's side, sobbing as she tries futilely to tear the plastic with her nails. Tony gently touches her hand with the little movement he has. I'm here, baby. I'm here. Dexter feels his world crashing, his darkest secret now blindingly exposed to the two people representing both sides of his life. Deborah, his good, honest sister whom he loves. Carmela, an innocent, mostly, caught in the crossfire of his lethal justice. For the first time in years, Dexter is truly at a loss. He raises his hand slightly, knife still in one, as he steps back. Deb, you don't understand, he pleads, voice shaking in a way we've never heard. He's a killer. I had to... Shut up! Deborah screams, tears in her eyes. I don't want to hear it, Dexter. Put the knife down, please. Don't make me do this. Her aim shifts between Dexter and the scene around him, trying to discern a safe shot. Tony, still strapped, interjects hoarsely. Detective, just shoot this psycho. What are you waiting for? Carmela, cradling Tony's head, snaps back. Stay out of it, Tony. She knows Deborah is on a razor's edge emotionally. Dexter slowly lowers the knife to the floor and slides it away with his foot. It's perhaps the first truly uncertain move Tony has ever seen Dexter make. Dexter speaks, voice hollow. Deb, I never wanted you to see this. I'm sorry. Deb's resolve falters. This is her brother, the person she idolized, now revealed as a monster in front of her. Suddenly, Tony seizes the moment of Dexter's distraction. With a primal roar, he strains with every ounce of strength left. The earlier elbow hit had loosened some wrap. His right arm rips free from the plastic. In one swift motion, Tony grabs a shard of broken glass from a nearby lamp Dexter shattered earlier for ambiance and slashes the remaining tape on his torso. Incredibly, Tony lurches up from the table, half bound but fueled by fury. Everything happens in a blink. Tony, bloodied and one arm still entangled in plastic, barrels toward Dexter. Blam! A gunshot rings out. Deborah fires, aiming for Tony's leg perhaps, but she misses in the chaos. The bullet smashes into a metal shelf. Dexter is tackled by the raging Tony, and the two slam to the concrete floor. They grapple ferociously, Dexter's agility versus Tony's raw brawn. Carmela screams and ducks down, covering her ears. Deborah rushes closer, trying to get a clear shot, but the men are rolling, fists flying. Tony lands a heavy punch to Dexter's face. We hear Dexter's nose crack. Dexter groans, stunned, but his hand finds a loose plastic sheet and he reflexively wraps it around Tony's neck, pulling tight. Tony chokes, but drives a knee into Dexter's stomach. They break apart, both gasping. Tony, adrenaline fading, collapses to one knee. Dexter, dizzy, scrambles toward a fallen knife. Not the big carving knife, but a smaller hunting blade that clattered out of his kit. Deborah sees Dexter grab the blade. No! She yells. In that split second, Dexter raises the knife just as Tony, on his knees, lunges forward one last time with a piece of shattered plastic rod in hand as a makeshift spike. A flash of steel and a wet thud. Then silence save for the patter of rain. Deborah's eyes go wide, the barrel of her gun trembling in midair. Carmela gasps, hand over her mouth. Under the dim light, Tony and Dexter are frozen in a grim tableau, inches apart, each impaled by the other's hand. Dexter's knife is buried in Tony's abdomen. Tony's jagged plastic spike is lodged in Dexter's heart. Both men stare at each other, shock and pain etched on their faces. Tony coughs, a trickle of blood on his lips. With his free hand, he grabs Dexter by the shirt, pulling him close with a surge of final strength. Dexter drops the knife, eyes glazing. You should have walked away on, kid, Tony rasps, voice gurgling. Dexter's lips tremble. Perhaps a reply tries to form, but only blood comes. In a moment strangely tender, Dexter rests his forehead against Tony's shoulder as his legs give out. Tony on his knees supports Dexter's weight, both of them locked in a lethal embrace. Deborah lowers her gun, horror dawning. Both her brother and Tony are hit badly. She rushes to Dexter's side. Carmela crawls to Tony, sobbing, "Tony! Oh God, Tony!" Deborah's hands hover over the plastic shard in Dexter's chest, but she knows pulling it out could end him faster. "Dex, hold on, okay? Stay with me," she cries, ripping off a piece of her shirt to press around the wound. Dexter's eyes find Deborah's. In them is regret and love. He struggles to speak. "It's okay, Deb." A faint smile, perhaps of relief, crosses his face as his head lolls back. Deb screams his name, but Dexter Morgan's journey has ended. He goes limp, his last breath escaping softly. Tony is still somehow alive, though fading fast. The knife in his gut has him bleeding internally. Carmela cradles him, tears streaming. "I'm here, hun. I'm here, hun. Ambulance is coming. Hold on," she whispers, even though she can hear the faint rattle in his chest. Tony's vision blurs. He sees Carmela's face, the woman who stood by him through everything. With a trembling hand, Tony touches her cheek. "Carm, I'm sorry," he breathes. Carmela shakes her head desperately. No, don't you do this." Tony's strength ebbs, but he forces out, "Listen, you tell Meadow and AJ. Tell him I love him. And you were always too good for me." Carmela sobs. "Stop it. You'll tell them yourself." Tony manages a faint grin, classic charm even on the brink. "It's better this way, better than a jail cell," he says, a tear mixing with the blood on his face. With one last ounce of will, Tony Soprano turns his head towards Dexter's lifeless body and Deborah beside it. There's a complex look in Tony's eyes, a mix of gratitude and pity. We got each other. After all," Tony whispers, voice barely audible. In Tony's mind, perhaps it's the ultimate irony or justice that two predators like them ended in a draw. His grip on Carmela's hand slackens. Tony's eyes fix on something beyond, maybe the light catching the dust in the air. And then they drift closed. The mighty Tony Soprano exhales and grows still, slumped against Carmela. Carmela lets out a wail from the depths of her soul, rocking Tony's body and sobbing his name. Deborah, in shock, crawls to her brother's corpse, resting her head on Dexter's chest as tears pour down her face. The two women, wife of the mobster, sister of the vigilante, lock eyes across the carnage. In that moment, they share the same anguish of love lost to darkness. Red and blue lights strobe through the warehouse windows as police finally arrive. But inside, the tragedy has already unfolded. Two complex men who walked a razor's edge between monster and human lie, dead by each other's hand. Their fatal brotherhood ends in blood and silence. In the aftermath, the authorities piece together a story that will remain largely confidential. A notorious mob boss and the infamous Bay Harbor butcher, as Dexter will soon be identified from forensic evidence, killed each other in a brutal confrontation. Deborah Morgan, shattered and sickened, helps Carmela cover up Tony's more sordid deeds to grant his family some peace. Officially, Tony Soprano is listed as an attempted murder victim who fought off a serial killer, a strange hero's footnote to close his life. Carmela returns to New Jersey with Tony's body, grief-stricken but fiercely protective of his legacy for their children's sake. Deborah, after burying her brother in secret, resigns from Miami Metro and enters therapy, determined not to let this darkness consume what's left of her spirit.